Okay, what's that flying behind me? It's a Tesla Model X. Now, even a used one of these goes for 93 grand. Some of the new ones, well over $130,000. And yes, it has the gull wing rear doors, not the front ones, just the rear ones. And just to prove it's real, look, the gulls have decided to evacuate themselves on the back of the window, so it kind of fits right in the back end. Now this is an older one. This one's 2019. So it goes 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, which of course is insanely fast. But the newer ones do it in 1.9 seconds. You'll see how fast it is later, but they are extremely fast vehicles. There's no arguing that. Now personally, I find it to be just a bland, ugly looking car unless the wings are up. If I was driving it, I'd want the wings up in the air so it'd look cool. Now when you look inside with the windows open and the doors up in the air, hey, it is cool and wide open, I gotta say. And there, look, it's telling you, there it is. You can't drive. You gotta close it before it'll start. Me, I'd rather be driving around like this. Looks like some kind of fancy Star Wars outfit or a Batmobile in the 21st century, but you can't do that. You can only look at it this way. Oh, what a shame. Down it comes. Well, that certainly made a funky noise. Let's check the other one. Hey, that made that little cow noise too. Oh, there's no door handle, so to get out, you gotta push the button again. But help, the button isn't working. So much for electric doors, I'm trapped, help. We're in here, I gotta say, this front window is humongous. You really get a good view. Warning, warning, finally, the door's starting to open. It's sticking. Well, it finally decided it's gonna open itself. Quick, get me out of here. This thing's trying to eat me. Okay, so it's got some kind of safety feature. I understand. I want it with the wings open driving because it would look cool. Well, it's not safe, so it won't open. I want a door handle to get out. I don't want to push some button that doesn't do anything or opens a little and then stops and starts honking at me. Now realize one thing about these cars. They make them aerodynamic so they go further, so they're relatively low to the ground. You're not going to be flying over speed bumps on these babies. You can see this thing scraped a whole bunch of times already. Now this is all-wheel drive. It's got two motors, one to drive the front, one to drive the back. They're an interesting design, there's no arguing that. You're not going to really get stuck, but of course on the other hand, you can't take this thing off-road. It's too low. Plus, the battery's way down the bottom, keeps the center of gravity low, makes the ride a bit rough, as you'll see when we take it for a ride. But it makes it handle quite well. These things are really fun to drive. Actually, they're a little bit too much fun to drive with the horsepower that they have. Now, of course, this has got that Tesla autonomous driving thing that they've been going back and forth on. Do you pay extra for it? Do you not pay extra for it? Does it actually work? You've seen some of the cars have actually run into things. I personally would never trust anything like that. Now, sure, the average driver doesn't know what they're doing. And if machines drove us instead, there would certainly be less accidents today. All it takes is a handful of accidents and a lawyer is going to come out of the woodwork and sue everybody involved in it. That's just a fact. And if you've ever done any type of analysis of car drivers, any real scientist can tell you one thing. You cannot combine self-driving cars with human being driving cars on the same road. If everybody has an autonomous car, yeah. That's what the 5G was made for. They can all talk to each other. Realize 5G has a relatively short range, right? But it's still at least a quarter of a mile, half a mile. Cars only need to know what all the cars within the next quarter, half a mile are doing, and it's fine. But you put some human in between driving a car, the machine has no idea what those people are going to do. And of course, everybody's not going to go out and buy $100-something-thousand car right away either. So there's going to be a ton of cars out there that are dumb cars that are completely driven by people, and you can't mix the two because the people confuse the machines and then wham, out they go. So if you're thinking about getting something because it's going to drive itself, you'll be waiting a long time before that is actual truth. They can help, they can drive themselves in certain situations, but you shouldn't be in the back seat going on Facebook while the car's driving itself. It can't handle unforeseen circumstances all that well. It's a computer, it gets confused. Because when you think about it, computers are binary logic. They can only do 0 and 1. Hey, I can do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can do all kinds of things, right? But a machine can only do 0 and 1. And once it goes on the wrong 0 or the wrong 1, it goes on the wrong track. And that's why you turn machines off that are electronically controlled. And when you turn them on, they might work again. Well, not such a great idea if you're going 80 miles an hour. You can't just all get to turn it off now and turn it on again. No. Self-driving cars, people talk about the future is going to be self-driving cars. Yeah, when they're all self-driving cars on their own roads with no humans interacting. If they can talk to each other, great, but who's going to buy all that stuff? Same thing with electric cars. Who's going to make the electricity? It's bad enough there's no place to charge them. If they built 5 million charging stations, where's that electricity going to come through? Hey, there's a charger here at my house here. The previous guy had one. And it works. If you go far enough that you can make it there and back and charge it at home, yeah, you can do it at home. And these have a pretty decent range to them. This particular one's rated at 295, and I've had people drive them and go 290 miles, and they made it to a charger. They do have decent range. Realize, this is a car. This isn't a pickup truck. You're not pulling a trailer, pickup bed that you're putting tons of gravel in. It's only pulling itself. It's geared so that on the highway, it can go quite a distance. It's got 2 motors after all. You're not just dependent on one. They keep spinning faster and faster and faster, and they can do efficient in town and on the highway because they got a 2 setup. Let's take it for a spin. The weird doors that you touch to get in. Of course, it doesn't make any noise, and we'll roll the windows up so it's even quieter. Great navigation map, of course. Look, reverse. Now it's in reverse. We're going backwards. It's got cameras all over the place. And then when you're on forward, pull down to drive. It's that simple. There's definitely no gear shifting in this. Now we'll take it on a bumpy Rhode Island road here. As we hit the bumps, you feel them. It's not a luxury ride. Now it's supposed to take off fast with instant torque, so let's see what happens when we step on the gas. It takes off fast, but we can't go for long, we'll hit everybody. And I do have to say, with this giant front window, man, you can see all over the place. I feel like I'm in some kind of spaceship. And of course it has regenerative braking, so when you take your foot off the brake, it starts slowing down by itself and regenerates power. You got to get used to that, because if you let go of the gas, the car will come to a complete stop. It's something that you really have to get used to. I mean, I'm not even touching the brakes, and the thing's coming to a stop. But of course, it's the acceleration that makes this thing insane. You step on the gas, away it goes, just like a rocket ship. It has insane acceleration. This little thing on the bottom there tells you what your range is. It says you can go 176 miles more. Yes, it's a fascinating car. But on the other hand, a used one of these is going for $93,000. The new ones are well over that, and it is an electric car that you have to recharge as you drive it around. Granted, it does have a pretty good range. All that money, to me, I don't know if you're going to break even. You saw, it's a rough riding on bumps. It's smooth and handles great on smooth roads. But the battery alone weighs 1,377 pounds, and being under here, you have a lot of weight low. It just doesn't handle bumps all that well. Now, I've driven the Audi electric car, and it handles much better because, of course, it's a car company that made luxury cars. I'm not a fan of Audi either, but they are fun to drive. They're not fun to fix, but they're fun to drive. But their electric car was designed by a company that made luxury cars. Then they decided to make a luxury electric car. Tesla, on the other hand, decided to make electric cars. They didn't have any real experience in luxury suspensions and all this stuff. And a lot of the stuff's kind of added on that, yeah, they are super fast. There's no arguing that. But for somebody who wants a really luxurious ride, they leave quite a bit to be desired for a true driving connoisseur. If you don't believe me, road test one of these and road test an Audi, and I guarantee you, you'll find the Audi is a much better handling and riding cars over bumps. It's a superior machine when it comes to that. Now, personally, I'd buy neither because it costs too much money. If I get one of these, it's exactly what this says. I rent one. You can see for all the money these cars cost, here's the one side of the door. That's a little worn, and that isn't. This side, the paint's all worn off of it. And the gap here, look at the paint. The paint's wavery. Not the greatest paint job in the world. A little better here, but you can still see there's a bunch of lump of overspray when they painted it. Check it out. The gap's here little, then the gap gets big. Here, the gap's big the whole way. One side doesn't even match the other. Let me tell you one thing. If you looked at an Audi electric car, it matches perfectly. It's a luxury car. It's made by people who've been making them a long time. I'm not a fan because they cost too much. They cost a fortune to fix. But when these things break, they cost a fortune to fix too. Hardly anybody works on them. You're waiting months for parts. I've had customers with them sometimes 3-4 months, no car. Oh, we're waiting on parts, they say. The guy builds cars and he wants to build as many as he can to sell them. Does he build spare parts? No. If something happens, you can't get spare parts for it. He doesn't care. And there's very little aftermarket for these things. You know, you're pretty much stuck. I personally can't do much heavy duty work on him because he doesn't share repair information. I've got all data that does almost every car in the world. Doesn't do Teslas. He won't pass the information on. You're going to be stuck with them fixing it when they do break down. Realize that. Now this is a little bitty BMW i3. Even though it has aerodynamic wheels, very thin tires to supposedly get better fuel ratings, everything's made out of plastic or carbon fiber. Plastic, 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 plastic. So that it weighs less and go further. Check this out. I picked this thing up 25 miles away. It has a whopping 31 miles of range left. So let's just say it's not a practical car at all. That tiny amount of range in the real world, who's going to spend all this money for a BMW and use it as a little puddle jumper? You can see, even though it's an older car, 2015, it's only got 27,727 miles on it. So let's face the facts. If you're only getting 60-something miles of range, you're not going to be taking any cross-country trips in this baby anytime soon. This is a 2015 base model BMW i3. Should have made the battery bigger. I mean, it's kind of stupid, really. So, in the United States, these electric BMW i3s were a dismal failure. They don't go very far. But the second reason, which is just as important, is it's a little bitty car, right? That's not BMW's clientele. They want big SUVs, big luxury cars. I had a customer here who bought one of these, and he got it for about 20 grand used, because it sat at the BMW dealer for months. BMW clientele did not want this car. It rides great, phenomenal acceleration. We're going to go through the whole thing with my fancy scan tool, but with such a limited range, this thing is like a grocery store car, right? And for the money they were charging for these things, it's not surprising that they were dismal failures. So I'll go through the whole thing to show you how these things work. First, under the hood is a tiny frunk. In here you'll see, what's that? It's a regular 12-volt car battery, though it's tiny. Now don't think for 1 minute that tiny battery powers this car. Here's how all the electric cars I ever seen work. They got a bigger battery. In this case, it isn't all that big. The big battery that's on the bottom of the car is a 22 kilowatt hour battery. Not all that big, 22 kilowatt hour. Fancy Tesla, they have 103 kilowatt hour batteries, much bigger. Hence, they have a much further range than this thing has. They should have put a bigger battery in it. As they say in Jaws, I should have brought a bigger boat. Well, they should have put a bigger battery in this thing. Now, that's the main high voltage battery, but it also has, like I say, this regular 12-volt car battery. The high voltage one they see is too dangerous. So for safety reasons, they got a regular 12-volt. When you turn the system on, that sends signals to all kinds of relays and computer modules to make sure it's okay to run the car. Then the car runs. So as nutty as it may sound, this little car battery in here goes bad, you won't be able to start the car. Now, as you can see, it's got special skinny old tires and aerodynamic wheels, so it can go as far as possible. But with this thing having the limited range I see it has now, they could have put a little better technology in. Those skinny tires aren't working out all that well, right? Put the skinniest baloney skin tires you want on this thing. The battery is just too small. It doesn't have enough energy even to push a plastic carbon fiber with skinny wheels down the road. Now, I do have to say it's a joy to drive when it does have electricity stored in it. It's super fast. When you take your foot off the gas, it brakes itself with regenerative braking. Again, try to make your range longer, but hey, it's a very limited range no matter what you do. And when we look inside, you can see it's not going to make most BMW owners happy. Nothing like a fancy BMW, right? I mean, they went for lightweightness. That's just what they've done. And it does have things like Comfort and Eco Pro to try to get even better gas mileage on it. They tried squeezing whatever they could out of this thing, right? They're trying to squeeze, but they didn't get much out of it. Of course, it has an AC system, but realize the AC system is also high voltage. So I didn't dare turn the thing on. It'll get even less range. Maybe I wouldn't even have made it back here. I don't know. Now, lucky enough for me, the guy who owned the house before me, I guess, had a Tesla. So I've got an Autel charger. So I can charge this thing up. Now, the vehicles come with one of these stupid level 1 charger. That's a level 2. Level 1 is 110 volts. It'll take you forever 20 hours or more probably to recharge the battery. In this case, it's a level 2. So this little bitty battery, it'll probably charge it up in 3 or 4 hours. And you can see on my All-Tel app, it is now charging. So I'll watch the clock and see how much it takes to charge it up when it only has like 31 miles of range left. We'll charge it up and see what happens. Now we're waiting to see how much charge we get in an hour. Look up my giant All-Tel scan tool. It does a lot of stuff in electric cars. Now, luckily this is a BMW and not a Tesla. Tesla has different connectors, different stuff of course, which is a pain in the butt. But these, I can plug a conventional plug for OBD2 in, as you're going to see. Although I do have to say the BMWs are kind of swines. It's hidden way in. We got to remove some of this panel here. There it is hiding up inside here. And it plugs in just like a regular one. And it's interfacing now. Okay, set us up. Let's do a fault scan. Let's see if there's any faults. Now as we can see, there are a bunch of intermittent faults. Power managed, 12-volt batteries not being charged. Power management, cyclical recharge not successful. Now these are intermittent faults in the battery and the motor management system, right? So that makes sense why this thing probably isn't going too far. Now let's look at intelligent diagnosis here. Vehicle voltage and the battery in the trunk is dropping too low. Now you can see it's working now. It's 14.6 volts because we're recharging it. The energy shortage in high volt battery unit. Termination due to high voltage fault. Termination due to the malfunction of the DC to DC converter. Now yes, with a machine like this, you can trace it all down. Got all this library data. I'm just borrowing this car. I'm just showing you how complex these things are and how they're going to lose range as time goes on. Terminal 30 reset or deactivated. Battery discharge protection, automatic air circulate control, line disconnection or short circuit to battery positive. Now, these might be electric cars, but they're electric BMW cars. We're talking about up the wazoo repairs, insanely complex repair procedures. This is now a 9-year-old electric BMW. I guess like all other BMWs, they start falling apart. And now that it's been an hour, you'll see we're up to 41 miles of range. Even with a level 2 charger, it takes time to charge these things up. If I was charging this thing up with, let's say, a 110 volt one that the car comes with that you can just plug into any socket and don't need to use 220, it would take about 11 hours to charge it up. Granted, this isn't that big of a battery. It's a small battery. One of the reasons it has such crappy range. It's a long time. Now you got overnight, go ahead, plug it in, charge it up that way, right? But you can see, it's a slow process charging this thing up. All kinds of things out with these. Dynamic stability control, electric parking brake, electronic power steering. Just realize these are complex cars. This one's getting older. It's already showing signs of failure in the electronic system. And they are tremendously expensive replacement parts when they break down. Anybody who would buy one of these things used when they get to be 9, 10 years old, gotta have rocks in their heads. But now for the good part. We're gonna take it for a ride. Very simple. Take it out of park, put it in draw, take the parking brake off, and away we go. Of course, it's super quiet. It's an electric car. We'll roll the window down. These little lubrication are, but the car doesn't make any noise. I guess this thing is so old, it doesn't have to make noise. All the new ones have to have sound generators to make a noise. This is an old one. Doesn't make any external sounds. Now, it is a little bitty car, so when you hit these Rhode Island roads, it's a bumpy ride. Now, this thing doesn't ride like a luxury BMW by any stretch of the imagination. One big reason that it failed amongst BMW enthusiasts. These things weren't cheap. They're relatively expensive, right? And for the ride in a short range, it's not amazing that they don't sell them here anymore. And we got an opening, so here we go. Now, it is a pretty fast car because electric motors have almost instantaneous torque. So you step on the gas, hey, there you go. They throw you back in the seat. They're fun little things to drive. For very short distances, look, it's already gone down to 39 miles, and we haven't gone a quarter of a mile. It was on 41, now it's on 39 already. What you're gonna notice is this does have regenerative braking, so watch. I'll just take my foot off the gas. It's regenerating power. I'm not touching the brake, but the car actually stops itself completely. See, we're not moving anymore. It stops the car entirely. So, you got to get used to driving like that, but they have to do things like to get any kind of range out of this. So here we go again. We'll give it a little gas. And look, it's down to 38. It lost another mile of range. You better drive this thing slow and low if you want to get any range out of it. Look, now it's down to 37 miles of range. Well, I've heard of big gasoline cars being gas hogs. This little baby is an electric hog. Scotty got an electric car. I'll tell you one thing, I'm glad I didn't buy it, and I'm just borrowing it. With the horrible range, and granted this thing does have problems, it takes a while to charge them up, even with a level 2 charger. Let's face the facts. The BMW, the parts cost a fortune. Fascinating technology, with funky little tires, aerodynamic rims. After all, this thing was $44,000 new. To go those short distances, that's all I gotta say is, I guess it was for those with mansions, and they got a long driveway, and they want to go pick their mail up so they could drive to get their mail and come back. Or drive to the beach if they live, you know, a few miles from the beach. As transportation, yeah. We got a regular Model 3 we're going to show here. You just put the key down here. To start it, you just have to tap the card and press the brake. A regular stick like a car. The R will make it back up, and as you can see all around. There's my Celica. You get a good view so you won't run into anything. Whee! No sound. We don't want to hit my grandson's Tundra there. It would probably do serious damage to this electric car. Certainly it's quiet. Give it a little gas. Away it goes. They do handle really well. These actually handle kind of like a Formula 1 race car. I've driven them, and they have a really nice cornering setup. But just like a Formula 1 race car, you take your foot off the gas, look, the car stops itself without even touching the brake. It's insane how these things are. They have regenerative braking, so you don't have to worry about running into things, but you got to get used to that deceleration. If somebody's tailgating you, don't slow down too fast without touching the brakes. They won't know. Now, they are a lot of fun on twisty roads. There's no arguing that. It's low to the ground, it's a heavy vehicle, and it handles really good. It's very stable. And let's see what the acceleration can do. So we'll come to a stop, and we're going to floor it. Ready, set, go. It has very good acceleration. Realize, this is only a Model 3. This baby's only got like 270 horsepower, even though it's electric power. You can get 1,000 horsepower in the Model X, and that would have blown your mind. This, it's okay, but it's nothing compared to the Model X. It does not have that kind of acceleration. If you had a choice picking out a car, do not buy a Model 3. They're not that impressive. They're not that fast. If you had more money, a Model S. If you want speed. And of course, it's got Tesla's driving systems. There's nobody on the road here in the country, so if I go over the lane, you know, it's warning you. Now, I assume the Model X is better, but all Teslas I've tried, they're really nice on a highway, smooth. But when you get to a bumpy road, hey, they don't ride all that well. You feel the bumps on the road, it's not particularly smooth. You hit the bumps, you really feel them and hear them. For supposed quality luxury cars, Teslas just don't ride all that well over bumpy roads. On smooth roads, they're perfect. But on bumpy roads, they don't ride all that well. Okay, we're taking a corner now. Like I say, they handle like a dream. But when I step on it, this is nothing compared to what that Model X would do. This Model 3, you couldn't give it to me. It's blowing full blast. Baby's putting out lukewarm air. The AC does not impress old Scotty. Look at me. I'm sweating like a pig. Well, actually, pigs don't sweat at all. But I'm really sweating. The AC's on low full blast, and it's not like we're even sitting still. We're going 40 miles an hour. This AC, thumbs down. Now, personally, I can't get used to going straight and then having to keep cocking my head to the side to see this display. I find it very distracting, especially when you're driving on a highway. You're not looking there, you're looking here. I think it's completely bad design. I think they should have had this over here so you could see at the steering wheel and see what you're going, or a heads-up display. But whatever, over here, to me, that's completely wrong for driving. Look at race cars. What do they have? All the gauges where the guy's looking, not to the right. You gotta get used to these things. You gotta put it in park to stop the car, and when you open the door, it shuts itself off. Take my advice. Do what I do. Go to a dealer. Road test one. See if you like it. Because they give road tests. As long as you have a lot of money, they'll give you a road test. I went to the one in Houston, and they didn't know who I was. I just came in a t-shirt, and they just thought, oh, here's some scraggly guy. And they wouldn't even let me road test one of their cars. Because they're like, oh, well, the young people that worked there, they had like no training. Thought, oh, this guy didn't have any money. Shame on them for treating anybody like that. But of course, like I said, take my advice. Road test anything before you buy it. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.